Well, Sarah was about to read for us and interpret the fool so that we can see if Maddie is the fool.
So I think it's really interesting. If you've seen the Rider-Waite tarot deck, you've obviously seen the Rider-Waite tarot deck. I know that you in the room have, but if you listening have seen it, the fool looks like a youth. They've got a dog with them, and the dog looks also youthful, and they're embarking on a journey. Well, this we're looking at the horror tarot deck, and this version of the fool is a woman who is running through the woods, and there are some vicious-looking hounds in the scary woods behind her, and her feet are covered in blood. So it's someone embarking on a journey, but it's quite a different. It's a different journey, I would say, than the fool in the traditional.
Yeah, there's like a little bit of urgency happening.
Who's the artist of this deck? Does it say on there?
That's a great question.
Oh, it's probably on the box.
It probably is on the box.
What's
Illustrated
in the box?
by Abigail Larson.
Shout out Abigail Larson.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a really cool looking deck.
Yeah, it is. It is very much giving like gothic horror vibes.
And I just want to pull out the magician too, because we are talking today about the movie As Above, So Below, which is a phrase which I've often heard associated with the magician card. And in this, we've got kind of, a mad scientist in his lab. He's got a creepy bottled creature behind him, all kinds of test tubes, doing experiments. That's the magician here.
I'm gonna take a closer look at this one.
Yes.
Oh, and the smoke pluming from his beakers has a skull. It's like making the shape of a skull. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what's in his pocket. I don't know. It's giving roots or an octopus. I don't know. What's your assessment, Maddie?
Oh, I'm seeing roots. It's making me think of like the spirit vines from Legend of Korra is kind of what I'm seeing. But if it's an octopus, it's not a happy octopus. It's a very dead and maybe rigor mortis octopus.
Withered octopus.
Yeah, a withered octopus.
There was a point on an episode of Late Night with John Oliver, or last week tonight with John Oliver, and he was doing a segment on subways and how they essentially like entrap people because they don't have like the same business model. I would think all business models under capitalism are unethical, but this one was like... Are you
talking about Subway's the food?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought you were talking about the trains.
No, sorry. Subway, the food chain.
As above, so below.
You guys are definitely in the below right now. But, he made the point of like, your first instinct may be to boycott it so you don't support this sort of like unethical exploitation of these owners, but that actually harms the people working at these stores is because then it's great, it calls attention to issues and everything, but there is a sort of like flip side to that coin of like the first people that are going to suffer from that boycott are the most expendable people, which are the ones that work in the stores that need that money. So I actually wanted to watch it again so that I could like see what other suggestions he had as an alternative, because I hadn't heard about Taco Bell, but I had heard about Coke and Target rolling back their DEI initiatives. And which is crazy to me because like you literally had to do nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to act, but you did. So what you made a point. So yeah, I would like to think about that, because you think you're being like ethical when you're boycotting, and to an extent you are, but there is harm that results from that. And even though it's not harm you're inflicting, you can't control it. So it's like, what do you do then?
Right. Yeah.
So
No, please, I would love to see that too, because that sounds like something we are all reflecting on.
yes,
In this time.
Anastasia, have you seen The Good Place?
I have.
Okay, I had a feeling you'd probably seen it.
Yes. Do I remind you of Chidi?
No,
that was his name? Is Chidi?
Chidi.
Yes.
I wouldn't say you remind me, but that just like the whole like trolley problem of trying to exist in capitalism without doing harm. It reminds me of Chidi.
I constantly think about that show, like when I think about ethical consumerism.
I need to rewatch it. And Chidi, speaking of, that brings us to Midsummer, which brings us to horror movies.
What is?
Oh, because he was in Midsummer.
He was in Midsummer.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
right.
remember
Yeah.
I
him.
forgot about
Yeah.
that.
His death
Yeah.
was brutal.
It was rough.
I mean, that whole movie was rough. I actually had to pause it like right after the beginning and take like
That first scene is one of the worst scenes. It is so stressful.
it is horrific. I literally had to stop it and take double the amount of my like anti-anxiety medicine. I was like, no, if I'm gonna do this, like I have to be numb.
For years, for like several years, I thought that was one of the movies that was on my I never want to see it again list. Except
Yes.
me and some of my friends watched it this year, and it was less intense than I remembered it being. But that first scene was awful.
Well,
Horrible.
I feel like it sets the tone.
Yes.
So maybe the second time around, like since you know it's going to happen, you're a little bit more prepared, and so you're not living in that like. I just witnessed something horrific. I'm continually witnessing this like woman being gaslit by her totally emotionally abusive boyfriend, and yeah.
And now knowing how it ends, you're just like, I mean, spoilers, I guess,
Yeah.
but just you're just like, oh man, everything is so awful for her, but this community loves her and they want her to be queen.
Yeah, right.
It's
She found her family.
I'm glad that you clarified like the first scene, like because I forgot that was like in the beginning, and I was just thinking like, what, like the credits rolling over the tapestry with all the like foreshadowing. I was like, that wasn't that bad. It was just like a tapestry.
No.
But yeah, that was really bad with the abuse. It was really bad.
Oh no, we're talking about her family.
Yeah.
dying. Her sister killing her parents.
Yeah, she like literally hooked up a
okay, this is coming back
hose
to me.
from the exhaust pipe in her car to a fucking mask that she puts on herself.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just so horrible to see.
Okay, yeah, this is coming back to me. So the first time I saw that movie, I like started watching after that scene. We were actually like watching in the backyard, like with a sheet on a projector. So it was like
that's so cool.
outside, and this was like I think it was towards the beginning of the pandemic too. So everything felt very apocalyptic. And I got there late, and so like I totally missed that scene. And then when I rewatched it, I saw it. So yeah, that's why it's like. Anyways, that's a long way of saying that's why I don't remember it.
Her scream is just
Florence
absolutely-
Pugh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's like this subgenre of horror in like all its media, either through movies, books, whatever, that's like classified as good for her horror. And they were saying Midsummer is definitely like a good for her at the end of it. Like you're just like, good for her. Yeah.
Like you have this horrible gaslighting boyfriend, but then you have this nice Swedish boy who wants to draw you. You know?
Yeah.
Like one of the Swedish girls.
And make you his flower queen.
I would fall for that.
Yeah.
I would totally fall for that. I'd be like, I will do flowers, but sorry, I'm not like always a flower child.
I don't know. If somebody was just like, "Hey, come do this festival where we're gonna do a bunch of mushrooms and party outside," I'd be like, All right, let's go.
They did a really good job of like embodying a bad trip in that movie, though.
Yes.
They did. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Haha, bad trip because it was also a bad
It's a double entendre.
Because it was a bad trip. They went to
Wait,
the below.
Serious question. Can a double entendre work in a non-sexual reference? Or is it specific to sexual references?
I think it's specific to sexual references. I think otherwise it's a play on words. I don't know.
No, wait, isn't there another word that's a double entendre that's a innuendo? That's what I'm thinking of. Innuendo. Oh wait, no, that's not. Isn't innuendo a double entendre? I majored in computer science. I don't know these things.
So, let me look at my notes.
Yeah, we should probably talk about the movie.
Okay. Hey, so thank you for tuning in. Thank you for turning on whatever you're listening to, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'm Sarah.
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Anastasia.
And
this is Horror/Stories. Dang, that was actually pretty good. We are so thrilled to have Anastasia here with us today.
I am thrilled to be here.
And I just want to say real quickly, our other co-host, Nenya, is not with us today, but will be with us again next episode. But today we're doing a special in-person episode with Anastasia, who is from the Bibiliophilia and the Philosopher's Degrees podcast, which...
A mouthful.
Brilliant. Did I say that right?
Yes. Okay. I was just saying it's a mouthful. I know.
It is a mouthful, but it's a brilliant podcast. I love listening to it. It's, I don't know. I never get bored. It's just super like deep dives into books. And so I'll let you welcome Anastasia. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your podcast.
So my name is Anastasia Putnam. I am a Capricorn rising, Scorpio sun, Virgo moon. And my podcast is Bibiliophilia and the Philosopher's Degrees. I co-host with my best friend, Megan, and we met in college because we were both philosophy majors. So I feel like philosophy, it can be the root of so many things, and those who have like a good understanding. I think philosophy is an inherent what's the word I'm looking for? I think philosophy is an inherent characteristic that people have. It's just like if you get formal education and training in it, you can like really hone those skills. And Megan and I, of course, we graduate with our philosophy degrees and we're like, what the fuck do I do now? And eventually both of us went back and got our masters in different things. And we do have careers that don't necessarily focus on that. She's a teacher. I'm in systems and data analysis. But we really wanted to find like an outlet for ourselves. And that's why we created the podcast, is because we wanted just to have a reason to talk about philosophical themes in the books that we read, especially because I think it's fun when you can do it with books that aren't like intentionally written from a philosophical perspective, because like I said, I feel like philosophy is in everything. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we started the podcast. And, you know, I feel like we're now just like really getting into our groove about it too. And I actually feel like my mind is more active now that we've started it.
I have maybe a stupid question, but what is philosophy?
So actually,
is that a very philosophical question?
It's not a dumb question. And it is a philosophical question because philosophy, so philosophia, directly translates into the love of knowledge.
I love that.
Yeah, so
this is the right place.
Yes.
The right community.
Exactly. And so philosophy, there are so many different aspects of it that people can study. There's like the philosophy of religion, which I feel like we're going to touch very heavily on with As Above, So Below. But then there's like metaphysics, the philosophy of science, the philosophy of mind. There's also ethics and moralism that you can talk about. Some of the ones, so those were a few classes that I took. I also took like philosophy of law as well.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's like I said, I feel like it's at the root of everything. And so the way that I like to describe philosophy to people is like, philosophy is what Isaac Newton did when the apple fell from the tree and he was like, Why the fuck did that apple just fall? And so you explore. It's like it's that inherent characteristic that you have to question things. Mm-hmm. And that's how I really think about philosophy, is like, why is something this way? Or like when you talk about the definition of things as well.
It kind of strikes me as being like the missing link between like all of the sciences, you know, like if you go back far enough, like, I mean, I know because I studied computer science, and like that's like the bastard child of, you know, like Boolean logic and like stuff like that is like, that's just like the bastard child of philosophy that got co-opted by capitalism.
Well, economics is actually the philosophy of numbers.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about the love of knowledge and like why I swear I had a point. Cut out the parts where I sound
I'll make
stupid.
You sound so smart, Sarah.
Please make me sound smart. Make me sound like I have a love of knowledge. But it comes down, it really resonates with me about the movie we were just watching, about kind of this Scarlett, the main character, has this thirst for knowledge. Like that is at the root of the entire plot, all of the action. What is your horror origin story?
Okay, so I don't remember this, but it's what my mom tells me, and then I'll get into like what I actually remember. But my first introduction, like my horror origin story, is Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Ooh, yes. That's a fun one.
So sidebar, I know I was trying to show you guys my tattoos, but I actually have a really big ass one of Dr. Frankenfurter on the back of my thigh. But I'd have to take off my pants to show you, and I was like, I'm not gonna drop trow in this person's apartment that I've literally just met for the first time ever tonight. But and you know, for those of you who don't know, Rocky Horror Picture Show is very much like a horror sci-fi satire. And it's an amazing film. I feel like I saw that and I made it my entire personality. But what before or after that, because I was very young when I saw that for the first time, but I also think that it like helped me embody like my gayness too.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I know it's like, it is so outlandish now. Like when I watch it as an adult, it's amazing. I mean, they did such an amazing job with it and I love it. But I didn't feel like a freak when I realized I was bisexual. Like
that's awesome.
It felt normalized to me because I had seen that movie like so many times since, and I had like grown an obsession with it. But when you realize that you are bisexual in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, don't tell anybody. Because like nobody else had seen Rocky Horror Picture Show like I did, but I assumed that they had, so I thought it would be safe to talk about, but it was not. But what I really start remembering, when I really start remembering like my first introductions into horror is the Universal monsters, because that's what my grandmother grew up on, and she was a really big horror fan, and she passed that down to my mom, and my mom passed it to me. So it's very matriarchal in my family.
That's really cool.
For the sake of our listeners, definitely not for me because I definitely know what the Universal monsters are. Could you list off some of the Universal monsters for us?
Yes. So I would say probably like the first like real Universal monster film that I saw was Phantom of the Opera. So it's the 1925 silent film, because my mom wanted me to be classically educated on horror. So then we started doing.
That's so cool. I think your mom had the right priorities.
I think she did too. So she kind of did this like a compare and contrast thing too, because we watched like the 1999 The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz.
Sarah's familiar with that one.
that was traumatized me as
a and so we watched that one, but then she showed me the Boris Karloff Mummy. And so we kind of did like a back and forth with that, and then we watched Bram Stoker's Dracula, which Francis Ford Coppola had directed, and then she showed me Bela Lugosi's The Dracula, and so we did that so often. So talking about found footage too, since that's what As Above So Below is. We also watched The Blair Witch, and that was the first horror movie I'd ever seen that actually scarred me and scared me at the same time.
How old were you then?
So this was 2000. I think I was 10 when I saw it. And my mom, like, because you know how they advertised it as, like, it was true?
Yeah.
My mom was like, there's no, okay, also, sorry to your grandmother, because I was about to cuss again. But my mom was like, there is no way that this person actually sent these kids out there and endangered them. And it was like, so she started researching it on our Gateway 2000 computer with dial-up AOL internet. So that's my origin. And then from there, it was just like, really, she and I just like, we would have our kind of own little tradition. And now I would say when I visit her or what I've been watching recently, because that's one of your other questions, right?
Yeah.
Of like, what am I doing? What I've been watching recently. I've been going back to like more of the like 60s and 70s. I mean, even a little bit further back. Like I watched recently The House on the Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, which is so amazing. And there was like a couple of other ones that we watched, like Black Sunday. I wish I had looked this up before I came here. There was one, and it has Janet Leigh from Psycho in it, and it is about gargantuan bunnies.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I just really want to interject really quick because I also I wasn't super young when I saw it, but Blair Witch when I first saw it scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
And just a piece of advice, public service announcement. If you watch that movie and it really scares you, watch the behind the scenes. This is a good hack for scary movies in general. If you're somebody who's like, I want to engage with scary movies, but like they're scary. Like watching the behind the scenes breaks the suspension of disbelief. For me, I'm always just like, oh, it's really cool. So like seeing how they did all those like DIY shots in Blair Witch, yeah, just PSA for anybody out there who had a similar experience.
Yes. So doing the research behind it kind of like helped alleviate that scaredness because, you know, as a 10-year-old, you're like, oh my God, is this real? Like,
for real.
The Blair Witch Project is one of those movies that's now like a part of my essence. Like it's embedded, like sewn into my heart.
Yes. I still go back to it.
Oh my God.
Speaking of, you mentioned that your favorite horror movie is the 2013 Evil Dead.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little? I'm trying to remember if I've seen that one.
So it has Jane Levy in it. Do you know who she is? She's like in Don't Breathe.
Is it like red hair?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love the original, but the reason that I love the remake is because of Jane Levy. I think her acting in that is fucking phenomenal. Like, have you guys seen it before?
No, but now I really want to.
Okay, so there's like this one particular scene where she's already possessed. They've like pushed her down the basement stairs, locked her in so that she can't like harm anybody. And there's like this scene where she's like maniacal is like the best way I can describe it. She's at the bottom of the stairs. She's still able to wreak havoc upstairs and like, you know, create this level of tension because, you know, the whole concept is like you infect other people to create deadites. And she's at the bottom of the stairs and she's just like rocking back and forth and she's like tee-heeing about like all the stuff that she's doing, and the facial expressions that she makes in this are so impressive. I'm like, wow, this bitch, like, she put her whole chest into this acting. And
It sounds really scary. I'm getting scared just hearing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and her screams, like, she's such a believable scream queen. And so her acting is what sold me on that movie. And I don't know if you guys are like this, and this may just speak to my psychopathy, but it's actually a really like comforting movie for me to watch. Like when I'm like if I'm in a bad, like if I'm having like a major depressive episode or if I'm sick, it is a movie that I turn to for comfort.
Yeah, I definitely have some horror movies that fall into that because I'm also have whatever sickness that is. hence the horror movie podcast.
Yes. I recently Ben and I went to go see Presents, which I was expecting to be very scary based on the commercials. Have you seen the commercials? Because the trailers are really creepy and the trailers are very mysterious, and the quotes are implying that this is going to be a really horrifying movie. And haunted houses get me.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the trailers made it seem, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really going to scare me. I'm scared to even go see this. I don't know anything about this movie. I know that you, the viewer, you, the camera, are the ghost, but that's all I know. And I'm ready to be scared.
That's cool.
So we went to see the movie, and I do think it was excellent, but to me, it was not a horror movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good take. It was an interesting, creative twist on the haunted house. Ghost story, not a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But so we came home from watching that movie, and I'd been drinking a little bit, and I was just like, I really didn't get that catharsis of being scared. I was anticipating this feeling, and I'm not feeling it. So I proposed then to watch this movie that I was just like, I'm never going to watch this movie. And that was Smile, which I know you've seen.
Oh, is it the first one or the second one?
It was the first one.
Oh my God. The second one's actually better.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Well, just the trailer, like not even the trailer, just the image creeps me out so much that I can't even look at it. And I was just like, I can't watch that movie because that movie, every smile. I'm not going to be able to look at a person's face ever again. Like, this is not going to be. And I think that uncanny valley of just someone smiling when they're harming themselves is just very disturbing. It's a disturbing, like, you don't have to reach too far. That's low hanging fruit. But I was like, okay, let's watch it. Let's watch this movie that I've sworn never to see. And we did watch it. And I think it was good. I think it was really well done, but it still didn't scare me to the point where I was just like, well, maybe I should watch this other movie. And we didn't watch any more movies that night, but it got to a certain point where I'm just like, why am I trying to traumatize myself? And I realized it's because the world we're living in right now is so scary and so stressful. I just wanted to be scared for an irrational reason.
You wanted to be you wanted to be traumatized in a controlled environment.
Yeah. I wanted to be afraid to look in the shadows. Like, I didn't want to be afraid for logical reasons.
Well, I mean, because it actually gives you a sense of control.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird, but you can experience your anxiety in a controlled environment.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted something to displace the fear and anxiety I was feeling all the time.
Yes, I understand that.
I also because I definitely agree with like the sense of control. But one thing that I was just thinking about while you were talking that is also like the capacity to have awe at a feeling of like mystery and uncertainty, which I also find to be like a relief from like the certainty of doom, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, everything's really bad. But it's also like, oh, the universe is also like mysterious. Even if it's spooky, it's still mysterious. It's like, that's sometimes comforting compared to the like, oh man, I guess we're going to drill the polarized caps or whatever. Like, yeah.
Well, it's kind of going back to what we were talking earlier as a side note of like optimistic nihilism, where you're like, horror kind of makes you face the ultimate fear that people have, which is death. And you're like, I'm gonna die. So I guess the horror escape that we live in currently, I mean, eventually I'll escape. Like, it'll be fine. Eventually I'll just die. And it won't hurt me anymore.
Yeah. Okay. This is making me think of like, okay, so I've always tended to gravitate towards like supernatural horror.
Yes.
Like more so than like psychopathic, like killer horror. I mean, I like that. I like all of it, but like I feel like I gravitate towards the supernatural stuff for the same reason that I gravitate towards like fantasy, like, and like, I don't know. But this is just making me think like, I feel like I want to talk to different people who like different types of horror, maybe on a podcast, maybe with friends, maybe with my sister, about like and figure out what type of personality gravitates towards Twitch Twin. All right, end of thought.
No, I think that's a really interesting thing because, there are so many like subcategories of the horror genre. And I find myself, I gravitate more towards supernatural horror as well. I don't know what it is about it, but it's so like captivating to me. I love slashers. Like I love the Scream franchise. I love how meta they are, how they reference themselves. I mean, Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm so excited for you to read that book. Read My Heart
it was a chainsaw. Okay.
Oh my gosh, please, let's talk about it. Come back on the podcast because it is my favorite book. It is my favorite series. I just finished reading the third one, The Angel of Indian Lake, and every single one of his books leaves me bawling.
I know. I've seen your like caption, or not your captions, but like kind of like your recaps. Like I skim them so I don't spoil it for myself, but I'm like, I know this is going to fuck me up. Like, but in the best way, like in a way that I like will consent to.
Yeah. Yeah, you will love it.
So the other question that you had for me was the Robert Eggers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You're saying that Robert Eggers is your current horror obsession.
Yes.
Which Robert Eggers is known for such classic films as The Witch, The Lighthouse, most recently Nosferatu.
He also did The Northman.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, it's very good. So actually the only film of his I haven't seen is The Lighthouse, just because I was like, I don't really want to see two men go insane. Like, I mean, we get enough of that. I mean, so
we get it. They're going crazy in the Lighthouse.
I was like, Willem Dafoe's doing some weird shit again. Good for Robert Pattinson to like spread his wings after Twilight and find some really deranged shit to perform in. I did see clips of it and I'm like, wow, like I'm sure it's phenomenal, and when I'm in the mood I'll watch it. But I've seen everything else by Robert Eggers, and most recently Nosferatu is my current obsession. I have always loved vampires, especially Dracula. I say the Dracula, but Dracula. And like Nosferatu was plagiarized Dracula, the novel, right?
No.
Okay, so did you guys ever see the original silent film one?
I did, but it's been a very long time, and I was very inebriated.
All I've seen has been like edits online comparing the different Nosferatu films throughout time and how they really just reuse the same symbolism and images beautifully, which is so cool.
The original silent film totally plagiarized Bram Stoker's Dracula. They changed the names and the ending so that they wouldn't be sued, essentially. But actually, fun fact about Nosferatu, because they plagiarized Bram Stoker's Dracula, they were actually sued for it, and all copies of the film were actually ordered to be destroyed.
Interesting.
That's really fascinating.
Yes.
I love the lore.
Yes. So thankfully there was like a non-law abiding citizen that, saved a copy, because like then we wouldn't have all these iterations, and then ultimately we would miss out on Robert Eggers' interpretation of it. So the reason that I'm so obsessed with it, also, fun fact, so Dracula is actually based in a Romanian word called Dracul, which means dragon, and Nosferatu is also a Romanian word that is like the unwanted one. Like
that is so cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, because they didn't have I don't think they had language for demon or
this
anything
is so
like that.
Interesting.
So that's like the closest they could get to it. And so that's how you got the two different names, Dracula and Nosferatu.
That's cool. Also, the small part of us that is Romanian heritage, I'm like, we did something.
You guys have Romanian heritage?
And our grandfather's
side,
side. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So the reason that I really enjoyed his films in general is just because I think that he's a very like methodical and what's the word I want to use for him? The only word I can really think of is like considerate and intentional. And so like everything that he does is just like thoroughly thought through. And this is kind of ironic for me to say too, is like, I actually do really like the way he writes women. And typically I'm very adverse to men who write female characters. But again, it's kind of like that good for her horror. And I like Nosferatu specifically. I really liked the way that he explored different types of relationships and the ways that you experience love. And I personally resonated with this idea of being the way that Ellen did, where she was just so lonely. She feels so ostracized from her family, so different because, you know, she's kind of tapped into this like, you know, astral realm. And she ends up like just begging for somebody to care about her and to want to be with her. And that's how she's like initially introduced to Nosferatu. Did you guys see it?
No, I want to.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
So, okay. I won't spoil too much of Nosferatu then, because I know we also need to get to the movie that we watch. I just really liked his consideration and the way that he wrote about women and their experiences in their relationships. Like in the movie, she's got a relationship with like her best friend, and then she's also married, and you have this contrast of like almost like carnal like desire, which is like with Nosferatu and herself, and then you have like what could be like a healthier yet equally as passionate relationship with her husband Thomas. And so it's just very well done. And I do really like the way that he writes women. I think he's very intentional with his writing and his directing. And I would really like it if he did a modern version of the Phantom of the Opera, to be honest. I think he would
Hear that, Robert? Are you listening?
Robert Eggers, if you happen upon a podcast from 3 people in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know he's a really big fan. You know.
So yes, you know, he could do the silent film version or he could do the musical. I think he would do well either way, and I would love it if he would do something like that.
I love that. That sounds really cool. So moving on to talk about the movie that we watched, which was As Above, So Below from 2014, which I think was directed by the Dowdle brothers. So Maddie, have you heard the Bibiliophilia podcast?
I heard a little bit, just a couple of snippets today.
How dare you?
So on our show, we typically do a 60-second recap, but on their show, they do a 30-second recap.
Oh my gosh. Although I will say that, like, well, Sarah and I have really struggled to do the 60 seconds. Most of our guests have, like, finished with time to spare. So maybe we're just, like, not good at it. But yeah. What are we doing, 60 or 30?
Well, I was going to say, do we want to try doing a Bibliophilia style recap? How they do it on their show is they both co-hosts do a 30-second recap.
Oh, okay. Should we just like go around the circle 30 seconds a piece?
Yeah.
Sure, let me get a timer. Do you want to show us the way?
Oh gosh. Now I feel like I'm going to like put all the pressure on myself and like be terrible at it, but okay.
Wait,
yes.
I'm not ready.
I will set the example.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, As Above, So Below is a modern day retelling of Dante's Inferno, which is the exploration of the 9 circles of hell. They are represented in the film either by the scenery or the people within the film. And essentially, the only way out is through. And in order to do that, they have to go through each layer or circle of hell before they can escape.
Okay.
Whee!
I really wish that you hadn't gone first because I don't want to follow that.
Wait, I gotta restart this.
Just remember, like, I've seen this film upwards of like 6 or 7 times now. So
Yeah, for anyone listening who's about to hear my atrocious 30-second recap, I will say the disclaimer: I have not seen this film before, and the others have. So
Yeah, this was kind of cool because Anastasia's seen it like 6 times. This is my 3rd time seeing it, and this was Maddie's first.
This is my first time.
Oh my gosh!
So maybe you should go next then, Sarah.
Okay, but I'm worried that you won't.
You're gonna psych yourself out, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I'll do it.
Okay,
but
I'll go.
you go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got a whole bunch of characters. We have Scarlett, who is this passionate person who's trying to find the Philosopher's Stone because her dad did, and he died. He killed himself. He never found it. And then she ropes into it Benji, who's a documentarian, and George, who is just into archaic shit. And then these 3 French people who are good at caves, and they go down into the catacombs.
Nice.
Ready?
wait,
Okay.
Before you do you want a little bit? You want words of encouragement?
Yes, I'll take some affirmations.
Okay. It's never gonna be as bad as something that Kanye tweeted.
Amen. I feel better already. Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so Scarlett, basically Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, looking for a Nicholas Flamel from Harry Potter, goes underground, end up in Grave Encounters, and then it's also the Upside Down from Stranger Things. They get hurt, some people die, but it's about the friends we made along the way, except for that one guy who leaves at the end and never comes back because, I mean, honestly, why would you?
Nice.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
So, Anastasia, you chose this film to watch and discuss
Yes.
today. What significance does this film, or I guess, what significance does the Divine Comedy or the Inferno have in the philosophy canon?
So, philosophy of religion, I think, is where this falls into. And for myself, I can like, we don't have to get like super into it now, because I didn't know if we wanted to talk like about the breakdown of Inferno and like the comparing,
Yes.
contrasting.
Yes.
So I won't like go too deep into it just yet. But what I love about the movie and Dante's Inferno, the poem, what I love about them and how I feel like it falls into philosophy is because I think that there is reflection in there, specifically self-reflection, and how that is required to like spiritually grow, as well as the exploration of redemption through said reflection.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what I said. You know, like sorry, go on.
No, so that's like the summary before we get into too deep to it, because I can get deep real fast, and I feel like warm up a little bit before I get like super philosophical with you guys.
Yeah. And as we're getting started, if you haven't figured it out already, there are probably going to be a lot of spoilers because I really want to get into this film.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want spoilers, watch the movie and then listen.
Come back to this. But you have to listen to the episode. Just like put it on pause, go watch the movie, VPN Sweden so that you can see it on the Swedish Netflix.
So I have to say, the first time I saw this movie, and Ben and I watched it years ago, and I think it was one of the first horror movies I watched when I was starting to get into horror movies, and I didn't love it the first time I saw it. And I think it was just because I didn't have the context of like all of this additional symbolism and depth to it. I just saw, I just was watching it from a very surface level of like, these kids are going into the catacombs and they're figuring out everything really quickly, like Dan Brown style. Like, we don't have to, we're just so smart that we look at this puzzle and we've solved it. And when you suggested this as a film to discuss, that made me think, okay, there's more to this film than I am perceiving, than I've observed, and that made me curious about it and watch it through a new lens. And I loved it. Like the second and third times I've seen it, I enjoyed it more and more each time. And honestly, I've found it scarier and scarier each time I've seen it too. So yeah, having just seen it again, that was great.
I'm glad you liked it. What about you, Maddie? Did you like it your first time?
I definitely had I had fun. I think like I got hung up towards the beginning on like why they were following Scarlet, because I just like from my own personal like suspension of disbelief standpoint, I was like, there's no way I would go into the catacombs with this woman. Like she seems like not concerned about people's safety, and nobody seems concerned about safety. But that being said, once they actually got into the catacombs and were trapped in there, like that's when I was like, okay, I'm having a good time. Like there's a lot going on here. And I'm not super familiar with Dante's Inferno, but I'm familiar at a like high school English class level. And so I definitely like caught little snippets and bits and pieces of Easter eggs, and I'm really excited to hear more about like the depth of the parallels there. I think that there was a lot of one thing that came up that you brought up, Anastasia, was like the ambient sound design. I thought was really cool. I think it's hard to do a good like cave ambience that's not distracting. And I felt like very immersed in like the setting from the sound design. And there was like there wasn't like music because it's like a found footage film, but there was like musical elements that definitely like led to like good tension builds and good jump scares.
Did you think this worked as a found footage film?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what
tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, at one point, Sarah, you were saying that you thought it was like believable for the way that they like the reason that they kept recording, and that's like always the big struggle with found footage films, right? Is like, why is the camera rolling all the time? Why do we have all these like cinematic shots of like things? And like when we were watching Incantation, for example, like they just were like, okay, at certain points this is just not going to be found footage, you know, like they just kind of made that decision for like the sake of the story and the tone. But having the cameras built into the headlamps so that they're always like directional of where somebody's looking, and there's not like why are you holding that camcorder while you're being chased by demons? Like I thought that was a nice device, because like at a certain point, like we talked a little bit about Blair Witch, like they were, you know, the first and in my opinion still the best to do the like, you know, committed documentarian who's just like so obsessed with getting the footage, you know, like that they're going to keep recording even when it's inappropriate. I feel like they did it and then everyone tried to do it after that and it got tired really quick. And so I do appreciate the device of like having like a GoPro style headlamp where it's like, okay, well, they're not thinking about recording. It's just rolling all the time. I think it maybe they could have done more to like, you know, do like the found part of the found footage of like, who found it? You know, right, like how did this come to be? But also like, you know, we get it at this point, you know, like the trick is been shared. Nobody believes that found footage is actually found anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think, I mean, this is a huge spoiler, but the people who had the cameras on their headlamps are the ones who survived. So you have like, because I was wondering that at first, because that's something that always bothers me in found footage films, especially if they're filming on multiple cameras. Like, who's curating this? Where is this footage? Who's finding all these cameras and curating this? But all three of them made it above. They grab Benji's camera on the way out. So it's believable. Like, yeah, we don't have the results, but we do have all the footage has made it so that it theoretically could be curated into a film.
I agree. So I can give like a short breakdown of Inferno.
That sounds amazing.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the Inferno was an epic poem written by Dante Alighieri, also known as Dante's Inferno. It depicts Dante's descent into the 9 circles of hell, led by Virgil, which is a Roman poet who is well known for his virtue and his divine goodness. And he is sent to help Dante by Dante's wife, who is in heaven. Her name is Beatrice. And so each circle that they go into when they go through the 9 circles of hell are represented by a particular sin and its corresponding punishment. And the poem considers morality, justice, and the human condition. And the themes explored in it are sin, redemption, and God's will. So, what do we think of that?
Redemption definitely made an appearance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'd definitely sin as well.
Sin?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good segue into the 9 circles in the poem and how they're represented in as above, so below. So the anti-inferno in Dante's Inferno is where the souls of those who did not commit one way or another to good and or evil reside. And in the movie, this is their initial descent into the catacombs when they're chased by the police.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And then limbo is the first circle in the poem. And it is for those who died without being baptized and or for those who lived prior to Christ. Mm-hmm. So those who wouldn't have known them. So you think pre-Socratic philosophers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Those in limbo are sullen but not tormented. In the movie, they encounter limbo when they run into Le Taupe.
I was just about to say,
what does Le Taupe mean?
The mole or the rat or something.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think they said the mole at one point.
Because I want to know more about the names as well. Because, just briefly, I know papillon is butterfly, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure. And we have Suxi and Zed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what Suxi would be, but I think Zed, it's the last letter of the alphabet. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think that there must be something in the names there.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. I always think of Suxi and the Banshees.
yeah, absolutely. Mm.
Yeah, so once they encounter Le Taupe, he is very morose that his friends never came to look for him, and he is fated and doomed to stay in the catacombs forever. Mm-hmm. And then lust is the second circle in the poem, and Dante meets a woman, Francesca, who committed adultery with her brother-in-law, both of whom are in hell. In the movie, lust is physically represented by the colorless tunnels, a vortex of souls, and hissing.
Interesting.
However, it's hypothesized that Benji represents the sin of lust, which is illustrated by the woman he keeps running into above and below, as well as his death. And so he's pushed to his death by a woman holding a baby. And she's different from the woman that he's been seeing.
Yeah.
And yes, and it's said that this is either a current significant other and their child together who's punishing him for lusting after another woman, or she's a previous significant other and their child that he abandoned. Mm-hmm. So those are the hypotheses about Benji and his representation in the film. Mm-hmm. Gluttony is the third circle of hell in the poem, and in the movie it's physically illustrated by the widened third floor tunnel section containing the growl of an unseen Cerberus.
What's a Cerberus?
So that is a demon that is in the poem.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a 3-headed dog.
Gotcha.
Yes. And let's see. It's also hypothesized that this is illustrated by the group's tendency to consume beyond necessity. So this is my personal opinion that I noted here is like, though I think Scarlet is guilty of and represents another sin more strongly, I think she is also gluttonous in her need to consume as much information as possible. For example, her multiple degrees and wanting to explore areas that put herself and others in danger.
Yeah.
So after that, we run into greed, which is the fourth circle of hell in the poem, where the avaricious and the prodigal are made to battle one another. And the avaricious are those who hoard wealth, and the prodigal are those that, I don't want to say overconsumption because we were just using that in the context of greed, but they're like the spenders.
I'm learning so much. Like, I felt like I was learning so much just watching the movie, but I'm learning so much even more now.
Right. I feel like it's a really hidden gem film. I'm sure they're like
hidden gem because they're looking for the
philosophers. I didn't even. You're welcome for this unintentional setup.
Okay. Anyways,
so in the poem, those two are like essentially battling each other. They're having to like push boulders on top of each other, essentially. And in the movie, it's physically illustrated by the enclosure containing the Mark of David, engraving of Plutus, the trapped treasure, and a false philosopher's stone for single use. Then after that comes wrath, which is the fifth circle of hell. And in the poem, where those who are guilty of the sin must battle in a muddy field made so by the river Styx. And in the movie, it's physically illustrated by the damaged reverse enclosure of greed, which is completely empty, minus a filthy water entrance. And this is also where Latope kills Suxi.
So scary.
Yes. I think, and this is another opinion that I kind of like inserted here, is like, I think we see its physical impact on the characters because they are being continuously confronted by their misdeeds in the above world. And the sixth circle is heresy, where those who contradict Christianity are trapped in burning tombs. Physically in the film, it's illustrated by Florentine walls and flame-lit enclosures with 3-ring inscriptions. Metaphorically, I interpret it to be represented by the constant incorrect assumptions that the characters were making until they realized that they were in hell. Violence is the seventh circle of hell in the poem, where those who committed violence in the above world spend eternity in a river of boiling blood, walking on burning sand, or are transformed into trees.
I mean, like, of those, I would rather be the tree.
So you say that now.
Okay.
Those are the people who died by suicide.
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah. So there's like the different ways that you commit violence, like upon others or on yourself. And that's how it kind of breaks down in the poem. In the film, we see this on the other side of the pool where Suxi is beaten to death by Latope. And then the second against self contains hallucinations of Scarlet's father. And the third is the satanic occultist markings over sandy tunnels. Fraud is the eighth circle of hell in the poem, where those guilty of the sin in the above world spend eternity being whipped, lying in a river of feces, hanging upside down in baptismal fonts with burning feet. That's how we see Papillon. That's what ends up happening to him. Or, they walk in the poem, they also like walk around with their head on backwards. Like there's a lot of different ways that
That's a scary place.
I know. I'm like, how is fraud like this is like the most extreme punishment.
It is really interesting to see which
Yes.
are weighed are the worst.
Yes. Because you have like lust at the top, which is like on the scale, like one of the least sinful, and then you have fraud. So, which is like the second most extreme. And I'm like, it's all subjective. That's also something philosophy teaches you, is that most things are subjective. Objectivity is very hard to come by. But in the movie, we see this is the amphitheater-shaped area with the drop where Benji is pushed and falls into his that he falls to his death into the ninth circle. Treachery is the final circle. So treachery is the ninth circle of hell in the poem, where essentially those guilty of the sin are frozen in various degrees and tortured by Satan himself.
So that's where you were pointing out the breath.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's the coldest portion of hell. And in the movie, treachery is illustrated by the water tunnels with Danny beneath them leading to the 4 caverns. The second cavern, the betrayal of community, ties in which Simonic Papillon is killed by the manifestation of the man he left for dead in a vehicular fire where he meets a Simonic's fate. And that's the legs being exposed and being on fire. Then there's a wooden throne, and the devil himself appears here along with the robed demons of what can be believed to be the ultimate people, like the ultimate betrayers that committed treachery: Judas, Cassius, and Brutus. Do you guys know who they are? Okay, cool. The demon of Cain also appears as the first wall demon that bites George. And then the final area of hell is traversed within the 9th circle is the bottomless pit of penitence and the reverse leap of faith. I think.
Faith.
The end.
So they're kind of brought down to the catacombs by Scarlet. I mean, I think we can all tie this back to Scarlet, her lust for knowledge. Like she's the instigator, but also how they really get into, like, Papillon is kind of a big part of how they end up where they are too, because of this this sin that he was what do you call it, complicit in. That spirit or whoever is basically uses Scarlet and George and Benji to summon Papillon and get them all into hell, I guess.
Who would you classify as the Dante and the Virgil out of the group? So a little bit more about the poem too is the reason that Dante ends up in the 9 circles of hell is because he's in a forest, he becomes lost, he can't find his way back. His wife Beatrice from heaven sends Virgil to him because his goal is to lead Dante through the 9 circles of hell so that Dante can have a sort of rectification for himself in the way that in his relationship to sin. Because he's becoming lenient, I think is the best word to use. So Virgil is like his virtuous guide that's showing him like these are the consequences of sin.
If it's a character, if Virgil is one of the main characters, I would have to say it's probably George, just because George makes it out alive, and we don't know that much about Zed. Like, I was a little bit frustrated reaching the end where we kind of see a little bit of everyone else's sins, and Zed is just like, oh, I have a son, I have never seen him, I do not acknowledge him. That's my sin.
I would actually like to asterisk that as well, to say that was really racist because he was the only, like, he was a black man. Yeah. So I was going to say he was the only other person of color because I know Benji is also a black man. I was like, oh, that's super racist to say that, to have the, like, only living black man in this has a child that he's abandoned.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And he doesn't even warrant enough that we get to see that. Like, right. I mean, see, they're like, we're not even going to cast it. Well, I guess he's never seen the child, but you're not even going to cast the mother. Anything. Like,
yeah.
How do we know he's being tormented by that?
Right. Exactly. Yes. We have no insight to that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Justice for Zed.
Justice for Zed.
This is a slight tangent, but I just, like, got it in my head, and I got kind of fixated on this of just like Scarlett being a sociopath, like and like in a clinical sense, you know?
Yeah.
Because like she clearly has like a disregard for like rules and authority, and also has like a strong disregard for like the safety and well-being of others, and is like very motivated and driven by her own goals, and I would say is like pretty like manipulative as well.
Yeah.
And I was kind of left with this question whether at the end of the movie, has she actually experienced remorse and atoned, for like her like, sins and harm that she's done to others? Or is she just smart enough that she like cracked the code and like figured out how to like, oh, okay, if I do this, then, because like her, I mean, like it could be argued that her motivation for saving, because like at one point she like, Benji, is that the cameraman?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like she's like, she's crying over his death, and that was like the one part where I was like, okay, maybe there is like some empathy in there. But like for the other guy that George, or wait, who's the guy who reads Aramaic?
George.
Yeah, George. I don't know if she ever felt any compassion or empathy towards him, or whether he was just like a device, for her to use to like read the Aramaic to like continue solving this puzzle. I mean, she expresses like zero remorse over like anybody else's like death, like at all, and like, so I don't know. I found that just her whole character, and I'd be curious to know like what the intention of the writer was, like when writing this character. But like I found her character to be like very unsettling in her disregard for like others' well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's definitely not Dante or Virgil.
I don't think so, because I think Dante has a redemption, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would say that she has a redemption, and or if she just like figured out like, oh, this is how I escape, and this is like what I need to do, because like she's like clearly very like quick at solving puzzles.
Yes.
Yeah.
She can notice patterns very well.
Yeah.
I hadn't actually considered that of like, was she genuinely remorseful, and like, did she, because there's no one there to witness her confrontation with her dad except us as the viewers, and where she's just like, she makes her apology and everything. But yeah, you're right. I literally had never considered the fact that like she's just really good at solving puzzles. So she was just like, oh, like I just need to go through these motions to get through this. And then I created the problem, but I'm also going to be the solution, and I'm going to help out these other people. So it kind of feeds into that like arrogance and potential like sociopath clinical diagnosis that we're making.
But it's also quite possible that like, the creators of the film like were just like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, she has a redemption. Like she atones with her father. She like cries over, the harm that she's doing to her friends. Like, so I could be totally wrong on my read of that. I guess if you're listening to this,
Dowdle Brothers,
let us know in the comments.
I have a hot take that I'm pretty sure is wrong. But when I was watching the movie yesterday, this was my impression that I was like pretty sure about until the end. And my thought was that they, like, what if they die when Benji gets trapped in the tunnel? Like when Benji is,
I was wondering about that too.
when he's having his claustrophobia moment, and then he's trying to get out, and there's the collapse. Immediately after that is when they hear the phone ringing. They find the taupe. They find the piano, and I'm like, what if they all died?
Yeah, We are definitely related because I had that same thought.
So what would be your theory about when they escape then?
Either they didn't die or they completed a redemption arc.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I accept that.
Or
Mm-hmm.
they're still dead. And they never came out of it. This is the bad place.
Oh, this is the bad place. Shout out Eleanor Shellstrap.
Okay. Is there anything before like I get into my like philosophical deep dive with you two? Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up about the movie?
Drop it on us.
Okay, drop it. Okay. So, earlier when I was talking about like reflection and how like reflection can lead to this redemption. So self-reflection is, in my opinion, the most important aspect of acknowledging our need for spiritual growth. It has us look at the uglier sides of ourselves that we try to hide from others as well as ourselves. And it is extremely difficult to face those pieces of ourselves, but it's vital to do so that we can offer ourselves some grace and kindness so that eventually we can forgive ourselves. Because if we can't offer that to ourselves, I personally don't think that we can sincerely offer those things, so like forgiveness and redemption or kindness, I should say, to anyone else, because we literally don't have the tools or the skills to do so. So that's my first point.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in particular about that stood out to you that you want to comment on?
Well, just the word reflection draws me to that image, or just, the idea of as above, so below. It draws me to that image that they came across, is that of David, where it's just like the triangles.
Yeah.
And like that is, as above, so below.
Yeah.
Like if you're looking at your reflection in the water, you are the sum of all those pieces. Like you are the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, like the big turning point where like Scarlett has the aha moment is like she's literally looking at her reflection, like after she's placed the stone back, and so that's what that it brings up for me is like like she's seeing like, oh, okay, this is.
I'm
like,
the answer.
Yeah, I'm the answer. Yeah.
I'm the stone.
And just drawing this back to the magician again, when I think of the magician card, I think of like that is the card representing you have all of the resource, you have all the tools at hand. Like you're in possession of all of the tools and skills you need. You have whatever it is you need to succeed. You just have to use that. And I think Scarlett is really embodying that, like realizing I have what I need inside. I just have to do it. I have to.
In the words of Kung Fu Panda, there is no secret ingredient in the secret ingredient noodle soup.
Okay, so then the second point was, additionally, since in Dante's Inferno, he realizes that sin destroys the self, the sinner is ultimately responsible for their own reflection and redemption. So bystanders who were harmed as a result of these sins can choose to forgive or not. I personally think that this particular unknown variable is what we find the scariest about acknowledgement and confession. Because even though we acknowledge and confess, we're never entitled to forgiveness. But this potential lack of forgiveness should never stop us from acknowledging, apologizing, and atoning. Otherwise, were we actually being sincere in our attempts?
Yeah, and that's making me think too about, maybe that's part of the reason, that they're so afraid to acknowledge their sins, like thinking of Papillon, where
it's not my fault. It's not my fault.
And same with him and with Suxi, where they don't want to, they find La Taupe, but they don't really want to acknowledge their responsibility for his
does
situation.
anyone actually say sorry to him?
No.
Yeah, that kind of made me sad.
And I'm thinking about like how La Taupe's situation kind of mirrors George's brother's situation, where they're lost, and like they're lost underground. You know, George's brother drowns in a cave, and Latope is just lost forever. And you, in both situations, you've got people who were unable to save, like Suxi and Papillon were unable to find, or maybe they didn't even look for Latope. He says they didn't look for him.
And then the guy that was burning in the car for Papillon. And then, yes, like you were saying, Danny, George's brother, like literally none of these people are alive to apologize to.
Right. But I wonder with Danny, it does take George time to acknowledge a sin, and he does eventually acknowledge that sin. But it's like, well, maybe it's all the same. Maybe it's just he takes that extra step to actually say, you know, I was responsible. I feel guilt because I told my brother I would help him, and then I got lost. And because even though I didn't intend harm was the result. And that was maybe the situation for all of those deaths that we saw, or at least the three we've been talking about right now. But he is the one person who, yeah, even if that forgiveness is not guaranteed, is the one person to acknowledge like some responsibility in another person's harm.
So there's like, what I'm hearing from your perspective is there is responsibility for intent as well as impact. Like you were saying with George, is like he didn't intend to let his brother drown, and he didn't intend to cause harm. Like he had intentions to save his brother, but the impact of his actions, i.e. getting lost, resulted in death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's responsibility that he has taken on, and that's kind of like maladapted into like guilt and shame.
What was the cameraman's name again?
Benji.
Okay, so what did Benji do? Like, what did Benji do to what was his sin? I feel like he just died.
So that was with the woman that was pushing him down to his death. So there's like hypotheses that woman is, again, I feel like this is a very racist assumption, is like a woman that he impregnated and abandoned.
Yeah, I just like that. If that was the intention, it was definitely not made clear.
No, it's
in the storytelling.
And I also like I also saw that, yeah, he's supposed to presumably represent lust connected to that spooky woman we keep seeing. But like, yeah, because his camera keeps following this woman. But is he following her because she's attractive or because she's just really spooky looking?
She's a very spooky looking
I was like,
lady.
this bitch is not like inciting lust in me. If I saw her, I would avoid her gaze like at all costs.
She would be on, if I was a documentarian, I would probably follow her with my camera too, because like, what is going on with this?
Yeah, okay, like, you know, like the outside of the club, it's like, okay, maybe, you know, she's just like, you know, in her goth drip or whatever. But then like, all right, she's leading choir rehearsal in the catacombs. Like, what's up with that?
With some like, weird ass Gregorian chants.
Yeah. And like, granted, you know, I support spooky witchy rituals in catacombs. Like, I'm an advocate for that.
Women's rights.
Yes.
And
and just witchcraft. Go witchcraft. But also like, that's pretty creepy. Like, there's a lot of dead bodies down there. Like,
she was given a menacing look, not an inviting, sultry look. That shit was like, no. I will kill you with my eyes. Like, just, yeah.
So I don't know that I necessarily, if it weren't for what I'd read online, I don't know that I would perceive lust, except the fact that she is a woman. And is this just sexism? Bad, sexist, racist stereotypes?
Yeah. I mean, so the hypotheses made online by people could definitely be that. I mean...
What, on the internet?
None of that exists on the internet.
What are you talking about?
We don't, as white
bastion
people.
Of justice.
Well, okay. Before I get into my last point, then, like, what would you guys hypothesize is Benji guilty of?
Oh man, I don't know, but his death scared me so many times.
I just felt like the whole time I was like, man, he's just doing his job, and he's having to crawl through claustrophobic spaces and getting his hands all messed up and getting pushed down holes.
He is punished, actually.
He just
really
gets. I feel like he had some of the most brutal torture before his death. I mean, like all the deaths were pretty bad, but like he just got. Yeah.
No, you're
around.
right.
Yeah.
He actually was tormented before death, and I don't think anybody else really was.
No.
Yeah.
And I do want to point out before we wrap up, like how relatable these torments are that people are experiencing. Like Benji's claustrophobia, when they're in these dark enclosed spaces, there's shadows, there's limited room, there's limited visibility. There's, bones everywhere. The part too where they're digging out rocks underwater to swim into that room.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of scary stuff that just like, it's not a stretch to be like, this is scary,
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it was easy to put yourself in that situation. And even though claustrophobia is not something I experience, watching Benji experience it, I'm just like, okay, I'm feeling this. Like, this is believable to me. This is making me tense. In general, I was very stressed out. My nervous system was activated.
Yeah, I don't consider myself to be particularly claustrophobic, but also like if I was trapped in catacombs surrounded by bones in a tunnel that might collapse, I think I would probably have some intense claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Mine would be sensory. I know this is like so minute in comparison to what you guys were talking about, but like when George is like forced into the catacombs, so he's like not prepared in any way whatsoever to be there. He doesn't have the same equipment as them. Yeah. The moment that he had to step into that shallow creek, I was like, game over for me, man. Like I would be like that would be all I could think about the entire time I was down there. I mean, until, things really kicked up and they, they're swimming through rivers of blood. But yeah, the sensory part of it was what really got me. And so I think that was just a really good way to create more like accessible, realistic like tension, because I think it would be, even like I said, it's not as like extreme compared to the claustrophobia example that you guys had, but I think there are people out there that would relate to my sensory issues of like I would be miserable, like or like absolutely. When they like had to get in like chest deep into the water and they have boots on and boots collect water. Like that's what I thought about when I saw those things, and I was like, oh god, like that made my palms clammy.
Also, just in general, I had so many moments where I was like, man, they're getting all these cuts and they're around all these like dead body parts, like the part of me that like does not like to get infected. Like was like this is I hope they wash their hands.
It's just occurring to me now how they got Benji into the catacombs even more, not just because like, okay, yeah, so there's the tussle with the police officer, but it's not just I have to get away from the police officer. He's already had that experience in Turkish jail.
Oh, you mean George?
Oh, yeah, George. Sorry. George just looks like a Benji.
I know.
He does to me too. Like
that's why
I think his name. Wait, I think that the actor's name is Ben Feldman.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay? I gotta look it up. His name is Ben Feldman. He looks like a Benji.
Yeah.
Clocked him.
Yes, you did. Yep. So, yes. I don't know what we were saying before you broke.
Oh, just he's had that experience in the Turkish jail, so he's even more wants to avoid law enforcement so he doesn't get arrested again because of this stupid woman.
Yes.
Yeah, Scarlett's definitely
Fake friend.
I was going to say anti-hero, but you still root for anti-hero. So I don't even know what you would call her. I don't know. Is there a term for like a protagonist that you don't root for?
Fake friend.
Just can you imagine? He's been breaking into places, fixing bells, not getting arrested for doing any of that stuff, which is also illegal. And it's because of this bitch.
I would say that he has the sin of bad boundaries. that's kind of on him. Let's be honest.
Yeah, like he could have just said, "Hey, why don't you go down there, take pictures, bring it back, and then I'll translate."
Mm-hmm, right.
Like, yeah, no, he was definitely following that pussy. Like, he was putting that pussy on a pedestal.
100%.
It's like that week in Turkey, the week when I got arrested and went to Turkish jail.
And you
that was
abandoned
the
me?
best. You abandoned me, and I didn't want to talk to you again after for years. That was the best week of my life.
All right, George is kinky. We got it.
I mean, with a woman like Scarlett, I think you have to be like, she does not strike me as somebody that's vanilla.
She's adventurous.
She very much
to her
is.
core. My final thought, and I hope I can pull this together because my brain is getting quite tired at this point, but just that when we confess to something, when we acknowledge our own sins aloud, we are making ourselves vulnerable. And that is really scary to do. And we were talking at the very beginning about being the fool, like acting the fool.
Yeah.
And if you act the fool, other people feel comfortable to follow and to also be foolish and be vulnerable. And just like, I think with that, in that same act of confessing or acknowledging our sins, maybe someone will throw stones. Like that's a fear, is that other people, now you've shown a vulnerability that people can attack, or you've opened a doorway for someone else to be vulnerable. So gonna pull that back, drawing it all back to the fool. We've come full circle like in tarot. As above, so below.
Hell yeah. And on that note, I guess, how do you guys sign off?
Let me look at my
very
notes.
chaotically.
Quickly, where can folks find you on the internet? You have a podcast called Bibiliophilia and the Philosopher's Degrees podcast, which I really highly recommend.
Thank you.
My favorite episodes are the one on Call Me By Your Name and What Moves the Dead, but like pick up anywhere. They're all good.
Thank you.
Yeah, anywhere else that people should follow you or on Instagram.
Yeah, so you can email us at biblio.phil.podcast@gmail.com. And then our Instagram handle is the same. It's biblio.phil.podcast. And in it, there's actually a guest form. If you would like to come on the show, Sarah's actually going to be on our March episode. So we're very excited for the little crossover we've got going on.
I'm very excited.
And on my personal page is at a Scorpio Crone. So that's me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Oh yeah, I probably was going to say a similar thing to you, but thank you so much for being here. You're just a phenomenal person to talk to.
Oh my gosh,
And
thank you.
Also, this didn't get recorded on the podcast, but Anastasia also has fantastic taste in music.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
And yeah, just so many thoughts, so many thought-provoking questions, and just ideas floating around. I am sure that if we were not so tired and old, that we would talk longer.
Yeah,
we could absolutely have more of a conversation.
I think so too.
And if both of you read My Heart is a Chainsaw, we should revisit this. Come back again.
Yeah. You can invite me back anytime. I'd love to come back. You guys have been great companions to have conversations with. So.
This is super fun. And I'm really glad that you prompted me to examine that film from a new light that I really wouldn't have considered it before.
I'm glad. I'm really glad.
And I really enjoyed it. So I'm just going to thank everyone. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. Go ahead and follow and listen to the Bibliophilia and the Philosopher Degrees
It's a mouthful. I'm sorry.
And, if you liked the show, feel free to give us a rating and review. You can follow us on Instagram at horror/stories_pod. Next episode, Nenny is going to be back with us, and we are also going to have a special guest, Kate Raven, who is one of my favorite people in the world, one of my favorite authors, and just incredibly talented, subversive genius. And we're going to be talking about the book and film adaptation of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So that's going to be what you can look forward to next.